Yeah.
All right. Thank y'all for your patience. Commissioner Gonzalez is remote today and is having some IT problems. So normally I would like to gavel in right at 9:30, but we're going to give her the courtesy of a few extra minutes. IT is not my best point either, so help her out a little bit. I think I see Katarina.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Good morning and welcome to the April 1st, 2026 meeting of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The time is 9:35 a.m. For the record, I'm Chairwoman Brooke Popp, and with me today is Commissioners Tanya Miller and Katarina Gonzalez, who is virtual today. I'm also joined by our General Counsel, Mary Smith, and our Interim Public Interest Counsel, David Timberger. For each item that argument and discussion is allowed, we'll inform parties and the public of time limits for their discussion. Registration closed at 9:30, but if you'd like to address the commission on a particular item, please either visit our registration table if you're here in person, or if you're online, email agenda@tceq.texas.gov with your name, affiliation, and the item you'd like to comment on, and we will do our absolute best to accommodate their request. For those making presentations, please wait to begin your presentation until I or Mary have asked you to begin speaking, and please make sure that your line is unmuted before proceeding. And with that, Mary, first item.
Item number 1 is the consideration of the proposal for decision and proposed order concerning the petition for the creation of North Fork Municipal Utility District of Williamson County. The parties have been notified that the petitioner, the protestant, the ED, and OPIC will each have 5 minutes of oral argument time, and they will present in that order. The petitioner may reserve a portion of its time for rebuttal as it bears the burden of proof in this matter. And with that, we'll ask the petitioner to come and give their remarks. I believe we have Mr. McPhail here.
Do we have the petitioner here?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners and Chairwoman Pop. Bill McLean with McLean and Howard in Austin for the petitioner, and I apologize for not being there in person this morning. I would direct your attention to the PFD in this case. In that PFD, the ALJ determined that the applicant met the burden of that the MUD's creation meets all applicable requirements and should be granted. Only 2 of the criteria were protested, one being whether the MUD creation petitions were signed by a majority in value of the holders of the title of the land. The ALJ, after hearing testimony, determined that that criteria had been met. The protestant had challenged the director lots, but the ALJ determined that the 1-acre conveyance to temporary directors does not meaningfully challenge compliance of this criteria. The only other criteria that was protested was whether the proposed MUD will have an unreasonable effect on natural runoff rates, drainage, and water quality. After hearing a testimony, the ALJ determined that this criteria had been met as well. The protestant's testimony was generally pertaining to matters that would come into consideration in the discharge permit hearing for this project. And the ALJ noted that the MUD approval does not grant discharge permits, and that future regulatory reviews and permitting processes would address these issues that were brought up by the protestant. All other criteria were evidence was presented, considered by the ALJ, and not protested, and therefore determined by the ALJ to be satisfied. I'll reserve any remaining comments for my rebuttal. Thank you for your consideration today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments. Protestant?
Would you please, I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. There's a button to push with, and when you see the green light, you'll be,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay. I'm Edward C. Griffith Jr. I'm here representing myself and Wilson Springs Prairie LP, which owns 300-plus acres on the North Fork of Mustang Creek, downstream of applicant's property. Can I proceed?
Absolutely.
Thank you. The applicant proposes to discharge an average of 660,000 gallons of wastewater per day into the North Fork of Mustang Creek, which at the point where it leaves the applicant's property is currently an intermittent creek that is typically dry and flows only after rainfall events. The upper North Fork of Mustang Creek enters Wilson Springs Prairie property and retains its intermittent character for an approximate 1,000-yard section, which is currently characterized by deep, wide holes, frequently dry, that are capable of capturing a large quantity of stormwater following rainfall events. This upper section currently functions like a detention pond and buffers many runoff events that would otherwise cause downstream flooding. In contrast to the upper intermittent section of the creek, the lower North Fork, which traverses Wilson Springs Prairie property, has a permanent spring-fed character. It is charged by 3 springs located on Wilson Springs Prairie property, including the historically significant Wilson Springs. The spring-fed segment of the North Fork on Wilson Springs Prairie property is approximately 1.4 miles in length. It is a beautiful creek. It's a rarity in eastern Williamson County. I've had an ownership interest in the property since 1997 and have lived on the property since 2004. I drink water from a shallow well which serves my home. Members of my family fish, swim, and play in the creek. It is very dear to me. I am here pursuing this matter to the end because I believe the North Fork of Mustang Creek and the tallgrass prairie ecosystem on Wilson Springs Prairie property is worth protecting from man-made environmental contamination and stream bank degradation caused by unnatural water flows that will be created from a proposed wastewater discharge that will be 2 to 6 times the current spring flow volumes of the creek. As an alternative to discharging wastewater directly into the North Fork, I believe the applicant should pursue regionalization alternatives with the City of Taylor. This alternative would protect the natural water flows and the spring-fed character of the North Fork. Now on the legal merits. I believe that the administrative law judge erred in recommending approval of the petition for the following reasons. First, in assessing the availability of comparable service, the administrative law judge failed to address and in fact ignored the comparable wastewater service offered by the City of Taylor. The administrative law judge finding in the proposal for a decision states, and I quote, "There are not other apparent sources which have the facilities or capacity of services at this time. This is simply contrary to the weight of evidence presented in my testimony and the TCEQ administrative record. The City of Taylor does have the facilities, the capacity, and the willingness to treat the wastewater from the applicant's proposed development." Second, the administrative law judge failed to address the facts and arguments regarding the adverse effects on water quality raised in my testimony and closing argument. Instead, the administrative law judge just deferred to the executive director's procedures that state, and I quote, "Water quality issues related to any potential future wastewater discharge are not within the scope of a MUD-created petition, as water quality issues are addressed through any applicable TPDES permit applications," end quote. Because the TPDES permit determination has not been made, the administrative law judge rationale is fundamentally incorrect and completely contrary to the clear statutory directive of the Texas Water Code, which is to consider, prior to the creation of the proposed district, whether the proposed district will have an unreasonable effect on water quality. Third, it is my belief that increased flooding will be caused by the MUD's wastewater discharge and detention pond designs. I believe that the designed MUD detention ponds are in areas with shallow groundwater and that the detention ponds will not function as intended because they will pre-fill with groundwater. I also believe that the continuous discharge of wastewater into the now intermittent section of the North Fork will eliminate its current function as serving as a detention pond on Wilson Springs Prairie property. After nearly 30 years of daily observation of groundwater levels and rainfall drainage patterns in the area, I can promise you that the North Fork mud will increase the number and severity of flood events on the North Fork.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We hear from the Executive Director.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Office of Public Interest Counsel. I am Kayla Murray, an attorney in the Environmental Law Division, and with me today is Justin Tack, manager of the district section, and we are representing the Executive Director. In the proposal for decision for North Fork Mud, the ALJ concluded that the applicant met its burden of proving the district's creation meets all applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. The ED recommends that the Commission adopt the ALJ's proposed order with the changes included in the ALJ's exceptions letter and create the North Fork Mud of Williamson County. Thank you, and we are available for questions.
Thank you so much. OPIC?
Hi, yes. Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and the Executive Directors, attorneys, and staff. I'm Sheldon Wayne for the Office of Public Interest Counsel. With respect to the Commission's consideration of the proposal for decision and related record in this matter, after participating in the hearing on the merits and examining the evidence and argument presented, OPIC agrees with the Honorable Administrative Law Judge that this petition should be granted. OPIC finds that a preponderance of the evidence demonstrates that petitioners have met their burden of showing that the creation petition and supporting documentation meet all applicable legal requirements and that the district project is feasible, practicable, necessary, and further would be a benefit to the land to be included in the district. Therefore, OPIC supports creation of this district and respectfully recommends that the Commission enter an order providing for such. With respect to the issues contested by the protested in this matter, firstly, we agree with the Administrative Law Judge that as required by Section 54.014 of the Texas Water Code, the petitioners have demonstrated that they hold title to a majority of the value of the land to be included within the district. Secondly, with respect to whether the district will have an unreasonable effect on natural runoff rates, drainage, and water quality, protestant argues that the applicant's planned detention ponds will not operate as intended because they will pre-fill with groundwater, leaving no room for rainwater. He is also concerned that the segment of Mustang Creek that crosses his property will fill with the development's wastewater and not be able to function as a detention pond. Finally, he generally argues that the development's wastewater discharge will alter the flow characteristics of Mustang Creek. However, as noted in the proposal for decision, protestant did not offer any evidence for his contentions beyond his own personal observations. In contrast, petitioners presented evidence that they will utilize detention ponds and outfalls to ensure that the district does not increase runoff rates. If the district encounters groundwater, it will implement a groundwater mitigation plan, which would include an impermeable layer at the bottom of the detention ponds. Furthermore, water quality will be addressed through compliance with TCEQ requirements, including stormwater pollution prevention plans for the development and TPDES permitting for the proposed wastewater treatment facility. Therefore, upon evaluation of the evidence, OPIC finds that petitioners have carried their burden and that the preponderant evidence shows that the petition meets all applicable statutory and regulatory requirements. As such, we respectfully recommend that the petition be granted and the district be ordered created, incorporating the limited changes as outlined and adopted by the Administrative Law Judge in her exceptions letter. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Sheldon. I believe Mr. McLean has 3 minutes and 4 seconds remaining, should you decide to use it.
Yes, Chairwoman, thank you, and I won't use all that time. I would just echo the comments of the OPIC and your legal staff in this case. The protestants' comments today are just a reiteration of testimony at the evidentiary hearing, and I believe include comments that were outside the record from that hearing. He also commented on the criteria of availability of comparable services, which was not protested at the evidentiary hearing, and therefore I don't think are appropriate for your consideration today. Again, based on the foregoing and what you've heard today, we would request that you approve the creation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, colleagues, item 1 requires us to consider the petition to create the North Fork Municipal Utility District of Williamson County and to grant road powers. I agree with the ALJ's recommendation that we grant the petition and create the district. I agree with that the petitioners have met their burden and demonstrate that the project is feasible, practical, and is necessary and would be a benefit to the land included in the district. I recommend that the commission create the MUD and grant it road powers, but I intend to recommend some small changes to the proposed order, some of which were raised by the AED in the exceptions and agreed to in the ALJ's reply, and some additional changes. In order to make my proposed changes easier to follow, I'll circulate a document that recommends numbering and some typographical changes, deleting finding of fact 32 as not relevant to the unreasonable groundwater effects inquiry, rewording finding of fact 52 to correct the temporary director qualification requirements, and amend and add ordering provisions that are consistent with past district creation orders. Any discussion before I hand my changes?
No, I'm good. No, thank you.
Katarina, do you have a copy?
I just emailed you a copy of the handbook.
Okay. I'll take a look right now. Thank you.
And OGC is passing them out to the parties right now, too.
Let's recess for 5 minutes while everyone has a chance to read over this. Thank you. All right, this meeting is called back to order. The time is 9:56 a.m. Has everyone had a chance to look over the document I circulated?
Yes. Yes, I'm in agreement.
Fellow commissioners are okay with that?
Yes.
Perfect. I move that we adopt I'm just making sure we have the right motion in front of us, and we do. I move that we adopt the administrative law judge's proposed order with the changes outlined in the document I've circulated from the dais today, grant the petition for a creation of North Fork Municipal Utility District of Williamson County, and the request to acquire road powers, and appoint the individuals proposed by the applicant and recommended in the ED's technical memorandum to serve as temporary directors until the permanent directors are elected and qualified. Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. All right, we're going to hop to number 2.
Item number 2 is the consideration of the petition by George Michael Rieger, Charles Allen Rieger Family Trust, and Piedmont Investment Ventures, LP, for the creation of Williamson County Municipal Utility District Number 69. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, this item is a petition to create a municipal utility district with road powers located entirely within Williamson County. Williamson County is the sole hearing requestor. When considering hearing requests for district creation petitions, we must determine whether a hearing requestor is an affected person who is entitled to a hearing. When considering whether a governmental entity is an affected person, the Commission considers the entity's statutory authority over or interest in the issues relevant to the petition. It must also explain what personal interests they have that will be affected by the petition. I believe that Williamson County's hearing request provides sufficient information to demonstrate that it is an affected person because it cites its statutory authority over and interest in roadways, including drainage on public roads, which is relevant to our determination whether to grant road powers. And as I have said in the last agenda, I believe that these taxing entities deserve to go through a full process because we are taxing our citizens. I also recognize that this item is very similar to the MUD creation that we heard in our last agenda, so I presume that my commissioners might have some different thoughts.
I would deny the hearing request of Williamson County, consistent with my motion last agenda. While governmental entities may be considered affected persons pursuant to our rules, it is important to note that it is not a shall, and the affected person analysis is still required. The county's request does not specifically state which aspects of the petition relate to their concerns, and does not sufficiently explain how the county will be impacted by the developments contemplated by the petition. As such, I conclude that the county has not raised a personal justiciable interest and that warrants referral to SOA.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Miller. We do consider all the relevant factors, including statutory authority over interest in the issues relevant to the application, but that's not where our inquiry ends. The county lists its relevant statutory authority and identifies general concerns, but many of the county's concerns are outside of the Commission's jurisdiction, and the county's request does not specifically state which aspects of the petition relate to its concerns. So given the general concerns, lack of specificity, and concerns outside of the Commission's jurisdiction raised in the hearing request, I do not believe that the county sufficiently identified a personal justiciable interest. So I also do not think that Williamson County met all the requirements to be found an affected person and would deny their hearing request.
Well, we are consistent, aren't we? Do you have a motion?
I do.
Commissioner Miller.
I move that we deny the hearing request of Williamson County, grant the petition for creation of Williamson County Municipal Utility District Number 69, find that the petition satisfies all applicable statutory and regulatory requirements, and the district is feasible, practical, and necessary, and would be a benefit to the land to be included in the district. approve the district's request for road powers in accordance with Texas Water Code 54.234, and appoint the following 5 people to serve as temporary directors until permanent directors are elected and qualified: Chad Burnett, Allison Grotzinger, Karen Montgomery, Richard Romero, and Elizabeth Zorn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. All right, moving on. Number 3, please.
Number 3 was actually remanded to the ED yesterday, so we will move on to item 4.
Perfect.
I'll give everybody a chance to get settled before calling the item. Item number 4 is the consideration of the application by High 10 Gerald 115 LLC for new TCEQ permit WQ 001-656-5001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Well, howdy. Since this item was noticed, all hearing requests in this matter have been withdrawn, but several requests for reconsideration remain pending. In my review of the request for reconsideration, the issues raised do not identify new factual information to support overturning the ED's decision to issue the draft permit, and the issues raised are adequately addressed in the ED's response to comments. Therefore, I deny all requests for reconsideration in this matter and grant the application. Commissioner Miller?
I agree.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
I'm in agreement as well.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we deny all requests for reconsideration, that we adopt the executive director's response to comment, and that we issue the permit as recommended by the executive director.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Let's hop on to number 5, please.
Item number 5 is the consideration of the application by GRBK Edgewood LLC and Rummel and Road Farms LTD for new TIPD's permit number WQ 00166-01001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not ask questions or will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Before us, we have an application for a new TIPD's permit that would authorize a discharge for treated domestic wastewater at an average flow not to exceed 660,000 gallons per day. The commission received hearing requests from 4 requestors. When considering hearing requests for these type of applications, the commission considers that 2-step analysis. First, we must determine whether a hearing requester is an affected person. Second, we determine whether the affected person raised issues in their hearing requests that are referable to SOA. So I'll begin with my thoughts on affectedness. To be considered an affected person, a requester must explain how they be affected by the application in a way that is not common to members of the general public. The hearing requester must file both timely comments in the hearing request that identifies their personal interests and concerns that they have. The identified concerns must be within the commission's jurisdiction to address in the authorization. For governmental entities, the requester must demonstrate its statutory authority over or interest in the issues relevant to the application. I agree with the ED and with OPIC that Wilson Springs Prairie, Terrell Timmerman Farms, and Edward Eddy Griffith have demonstrated that they are affected persons. Wilson Springs and Timmerman are adjacent landowners and have raised relevant and material concerns, including water quality, nuisance odor, regionalization, and whether the application is complete and accurate. Eddie Griffith actively manages Wilson Springs property and visits it often. I would also find that the city of Taylor is an affected person. In my view, the city has detailed its interest in regionalization in the area, which is relevant to our consideration of this application, a city may demonstrate effectiveness by specifying its interest in issues relevant to the application. Given that the city has a collection system within 3 miles of the proposed facility and has described its interest in regional wastewater service planning, I believe that the city has determined effectiveness. So I will stop there and see what my fellow commissioners think.
I'm in agreement.
I'm also in agreement.
Thank you, Katerina. Moving on to the second part of our analysis on issues, the hearing requesters raised relevant material issues regarding nuisance, odor, water quality, and anti-degradation, regionalization, and need, whether the application is correct and accurate, and whether the plant units would be protected from flooding. These issues are within our jurisdiction to consider for a TIPD's permit, so I would recommend them to SOA. I'd also recommend denying the request for reconsideration because I don't believe that they raise new relevant material information for the commission to consider. And finally, I'd recommend 180-day hearing duration and a concurrent ADR referral. Commissioners?
Agree.
Also in agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing request of William Springs Prairie LP, Terrell Timmerman, Farms LP, Edward Griffith, and the City of Taylor. Deny all requests for reconsideration. Refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues. A, whether the draft permit adequately protects against nuisance odors in accordance with 30 Texas Administrative Code 309.13, whether the draft permit is protected of surface water and groundwater quality, including the protection of wildlife and the existing uses of the receiving water in accordance with applicable regulations, including the Texas Surface Water Quality Standards and TCEQ's anti-degradation policy. Whether the commission should deny or alter the terms and conditions of the draft permit based on consideration of need under Texas Water Code 26.0282 and the general policy to promote regional or area-wide systems under Texas Water Code 26.081. Whether the application is accurate and substantially complete, and whether the proposed facility, if it is located within a floodplain, is adequately protective from inundation in accordance with 30 Texas Admin Code, Chapter 309. I would refer the matter to the Commission's Alternative Dispute Resolution Program to run concurrently with SOA's scheduling process and set a maximum hearing duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued. Did I miss something?
Just a quick clarification. I think you said William Springs Prairie, but the hearing requester is Wilson.
Oh, Wilson Springs Prairie LP.
It's a long motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. All right, moving on. Patrick, whose glasses did I borrow this time? Thank you.
We're on to item number 6, and that is the consideration of the application by ConocoPhillips Company for a major amendment of radioactive material license R01634. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
All right, this matter involves an application for a major amendment to authorize the removal of contaminated materials from the Slick Wilcox and the Conquista sites that includes a proposed new supplemental disposal cell constructed at the Conquista site. Since this is a radioactive waste permit, the rules in 30 TAC Chapters 55, Subchapter G, and the Texas Health and Safety Code Chapter 401 apply to the Commission's analysis for this item today. The Commission received four hearing requests and 1 request for reconsideration. After reviewing the hearing request, I agree with the ED and OPIC that Bernadette Diver has demonstrated that she is an affected person. She owns property across the street from the Conquista site where the applicant proposes to create a new supplemental waste cell and bring waste from other sites for disposal. She raises concerns about groundwater contamination and radiation contamination on her property, which I believe demonstrates that she may be injured. I do not believe that the remaining requestors, Carlos de Ala, did I say that right? All right. Blake Elkins or Leslie Gonzalez qualify as affected persons. In their hearing requests, Mr. de Ala, Mr. Elkins, and Ms. Gonzalez all failed to explain their personal interests and how they may suffer actual or economic injury. Regarding the request for reconsideration, as OPIC and the applicant correctly note, requests for reconsideration are not available for this type of application. I'll stop there, talk to my fellow commissioners. Thoughts? Katerina?
I'm in agreement as well.
I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing request of Bernadette Diver, that we deny all remaining hearing requests and requests for reconsideration, that we refer the matter to SOA for a contested case hearing on the proposed radioactive material license R01634 amendment application, and we refer the matter to the Commission's alternative dispute resolution program to run concurrently with SOA's scheduling process.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 7. We'll give everyone a chance to shuffle.
Item number 7 is the consideration of the application by Belle V Utilities LLC for new TIPD's permit number WQ 00164590001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Before us, we have an application for a new TIPD's permit that would authorize the discharge of treated domestic wastewater at a daily average flow not to exceed 150,000 gallons per day in its final phase. The Commission received one timely hearing request on this matter from the North Texas Municipal Water District. We used the same analysis as I laid out in item 5 for this application. First, effectiveness. I agree with the ED and OPIC that North Texas Municipal Water District has demonstrated it's an affected person. The district provides regional water and wastewater services and owns property within 1/2 mile of the discharge route. Its drinking water supply is Lake Bodark, which is downstream from the discharge. The district is a governmental entity with authority under state law over issues relevant to this application. Therefore, I believe that the district has shown that it may be personally affected by this application in a manner that's not common to the general public. I'll stop there, see where my colleagues have landed on effectiveness.
I'm in agreement.
Katerina?
I'm also in agreement. Sorry, I was trying to unmute there.
Oh, no, you're fine. All right, well, let's move on to the issues in the second part of our analysis. The district raised relevant and material issues regarding water quality, inaccuracy, and completeness of the application. These are within our jurisdiction to consider for a TIPD's permit, so I'd recommend that we refer these to SOA. I also propose a 180-day hearing duration. With that, colleagues?
Agree.
Also in agreement.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we grant the hearing request of North Texas Municipal Water District, refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing on the following issues: whether the draft permit is adequately protective of water quality and the environment, including existing uses in the receiving waters and drinking water supply, in accordance with applicable regulations, including the Texas Surface Water Quality Standards, and whether the application is accurate and substantially complete and meets all TCEQ regulatory requirements, and set a hearing duration of 180 days from the date of the preliminary hearing until the proposal for decision is issued.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. Right, we will move on to agenda item number 8, please.
Item number 8 is the consideration of the application by TCCI Josephine WWTP LLC for TIPD's permit number WQ00165860001. The parties have been notified that the commissioners will not take oral argument but may ask questions, and those who have signed in will be noted for the record.
Before us, we have an application for a new TIPD's permit that would authorize the discharge of treated domestic wastewater at a daily average flow not to exceed 1.5 million gallons per day in its final phase. The commission received multiple timely hearing requests on this matter from Jane Ridgway. For this type application, we use the same analysis as I laid out in item 5 for this application. Regarding effectiveness, I do not believe that Ms. Ridgway demonstrated that she'll be affected in a manner different than members of the general public. Her hearing request raised concerns for people who might be affected but aren't aware of the opportunity to participate in the application process. They did not explain how she will personally be affected by this application, so I deny her request, issue the permit, and adopt the ED's response to comments. Tanya?
I agree.
Katarina?
I also agree.
All right, do I have a motion?
I move that we deny all hearing requests, adopt the executive director's response to comment, and issue the permit as recommended by the executive director.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. All right, let's move on to number 9.
Item number 9 is the consideration for adoption of the draft 2026 Texas Integrated Report for compliance with Clean Water Act Sections 303D and 305B, and the Executive Director's staff is here to present this item.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Pop, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I am Jason Godo with the Water Quality Planning Division in the Office of Water. With me is Michael Parr of the Environmental Law Division. The integrated report provides an overview of the state's surface water quality and determines if surface waters in the state are impaired or meet water quality standards. The report includes the Texas 303D list, which identifies portions of water bodies called assessment units that do not meet water quality standards. TCEQ staff worked with stakeholders to develop the integrated report that is being presented today. The Guidance Advisory Work Group met on November 7, 2024 to discuss the methodology that was used to develop the integrated report, and the draft 2026 integrated report was released for public comment on November 14, 2025, and the public comment period ended on December 13, 2025. 5 public comment letters were received, and staff prepared responses to those comments, which are included in your backup materials. Staff respectfully recommends approval and adoption of the draft 2026 integrated report and your direction to submit to EPA. We also request permission to make additional non-substantive revisions if needed before submittal to EPA. Thank you for your consideration, and we are available for questions.
Thank you so much. You did a great job. Mary, has anyone signed in on this item?
No one has signed in on this one.
Right. OPIC?
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Executive Directors, attorneys, and staff. For the record, I'm Jessica Anderson on behalf of the Office of Public Interest Counsel. OPIC has reviewed this matter and respectfully recommends adoption of the draft 2026 Texas Integrated Report. OPIC appreciates staff's work on this report. The report serves all stakeholders by providing information regarding the quality of surface waters locally and across the state of Texas. And as noted by the ED staff, TCEQ received several public comments related to the draft report, and the report materials contain a response to public comment that addresses each of those comments. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Jessica. I'd like to thank staff for all the hard work and outreach that went into completing this report. I'm pleased to see that we are at a point where de-designation of 53 segments is appropriate, and I'm ready to submit the report to the EPA. Commissioner Miller?
I agree. Thank you for your work on this, and I appreciate all the comments we received.
Absolutely. Commissioner Gonzalez?
I appreciate the effort that went into developing this report. The work group includes representatives from state agencies, municipalities, industry, environmental groups, and river authorities who all provided input on this report. Report will provide stakeholders with the most recent information to make informed decisions when planning water quality management activities. So thank you for that. And I am also in agreement. We should adopt it.
Thank you. Well said. Do I have a motion?
I move that we adopt the draft 2026 Texas Integrated Report for submittal to the United States Environmental Protection Agency as required by Clean Water Act Sections 303D and 305B as recommended by the Executive Director.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank y'all very much. All right, brings us to the enforcement docket.
Give everybody a chance to get up and get set up. The enforcement docket are items 10 through 50, and I'll note that we do have a pending motion from the ED to remand item 27. But the executive director is here to present all of these items.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. For the record, my name is Megan Hamilton of the Enforcement Division, and with me today are Amy Sedemeyer, also of the Enforcement Division, and Gitanjali Yadav of the Litigation Division, representing the Executive Director. Pending before you are items 10 through 50. The total assessed administrative penalties are $1,687,683, with $213,493 deferred, $526,673 applied towards supplemental environmental projects, and $947,517 to the general revenue. In addition, yesterday evening, the Executive Director filed a motion to remand item 27, Doorway Recycling Solutions, Inc., back to staff for further case development. We respectfully request that items 10 through 26 and 28 through 50 be adopted, and ask that the motion filed yesterday evening to remand item 27 be granted. We are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Any questions? No. Do we have anyone signed in on these items?
So first I'll note that on item 33, we have Mr. Aguilar, who's the Chief of Staff of Representative John Bryant, and just recognize that he's here and available to answer questions if you have any. But on items 10, 13, 16, 19, 20, 25, and 36, we also have people who are available for questions and signed in on those items, but don't wish to address the commission. And one person signed in who would like to address the commission. He is virtual, Mr. William Lawler.
Mr. Lawler, are you there?
Which one is it on?
Yes.
Howdy, we can hear you.
Okay. This is our first go around with anything like this, and I just want to let the commissioners know that, City Hospital, we do have a steadfast commitment to environmental protection. And any and all past regulatory violations, none of those were from neglect, and I just want to take the time to thank you all for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. Appreciate your comments. OPIC.
Yes, hi, good morning again, Chairwoman, Commissioners, and the Executive Director's staff. For the record, I'm Sheldon Wayne on behalf of the Office of Public Interest Counsel. OPIC has reviewed these enforcement items, and we support adoption of all orders presented by the Executive Director's staff, with the exception of item number 27, which the ED has requested be remanded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, I'm going to thank y'all, like we do every agenda, for all the work that went into preparing these orders for our consideration. I'm fine with remanding item 27, and I'm ready to move forward with adoption of the remainder of the items. Tanya?
Agree.
Katarina?
Also agree.
Do I have a motion?
I move that we remand item 27 to the Executive Director for further case development and adopt items 10 through 26 and 28 through 50 as recommended today by the Executive Director.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. right. Moving on to the rules matter. Sheldon, I like your tie. I know.
I noticed that too.
Who's fashionista?
Okay, that takes us to items 51 and 52, which are the consideration for publication of and hearing on proposed amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 114, regarding the control of air pollution for motor vehicles, and corresponding revisions to the state implementation plan. And the Executive Director's staff is here to present these items.
Good morning, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Public Interest Counsel. On behalf of the Executive Director, I'm Stephen Cruz with the Air Quality Division. With me is Terry Salem with the Environmental Law Division, along with additional staff from Air Quality. For your consideration today is item 51, the Executive Director's recommended revisions to 30 Texas Administrative Code Chapter 114, Control of Air Pollution from Motor Vehicles. Also for your consideration today is item 52, the Executive Director's recommended Vehicle Inspection and Maintenance, or INM, State Implementation Plan, or SIP, revision. The proposed SIP revision and rulemaking would implement the statutory requirements in the Texas Health and Safety Code as added by Senate Bill 2102 of the 88th Texas Legislature 2023 and consolidated by Senate Bill 1729 of the 89th Texas Legislature, which extends the initial registration and inspection period for new rental vehicles from 2 to 3 years. Staff respectfully requests permission to publish the proposed SIP and rule revisions, solicit public comment, and hold a public hearing. Thank you for your consideration. We're available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I do not have any questions.
It's always a great day when I get to see Terry. So, our Air Queen. Has anyone signed in on this item?
No one signed in on either of these.
Right, OPIC, please.
Good morning, Chairwoman, Commissioners, General Counsel, and Executive Directors, Attorney, and staff. For the record, I'm Michael McCarthy on behalf of OPIC. We have reviewed these items, and we support Commission approval of the rulemaking and the SIP revision. We understand the rule shifts emission inspection requirements for new rental vehicles from 2 to 3 years, consistent with the statute, and requires upfront collection of emissions inspection fees at initial registration to ensure revenue neutrality. We also understand that the associated SIP revisions incorporate these IM program updates into the SIP, and the revision will not interfere with NAC's attainment or maintenance. OPIC will monitor public comments and any future hearings or meetings as the process continues. At this time, we support publication, and we appreciate the opportunity to comment on this rulemaking. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for OPIC?
No.
No. This rulemaking and SIP revision will amend our Chapter 114 rules and our SIP to fully implement Senate Bills 2102 and 1729. I'm looking forward to hearing what the public has to say, and I'm ready to move forward. Colleagues?
Agree?
That's okay. Thank you for staff for working on this rulemaking.
Absolutely. I move that we approve the publication of and hearing on proposed amendments to 30 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 114, Control of Air Pollution from Motor Vehicles, and corresponding revisions to the State Implementation Plan as recommended by our Executive Director. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have two
We
seconds.
so want to move this forward, we double it. Second it.
Do you all want to choose who's their
Katharina.
full second? Okay, thanks.
She's our second gal today. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Terry.
So that is, brings us to our public comment session, and we do have folks signed in for public comment today. The commission will receive comments from the public on matters within the jurisdiction of the TCEQ in accordance with Texas Water Code Section 5.112, except for pending permitting matters or other contested cases, which are subject to the ex parte prohibition found in the government code. In the interest of time, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, with the total time for public comment limited to 1 hour. Please note that the commission's discussion of subjects for which public notice has not been given are limited to statements of specific factual responses and recitation of existing policy. So with that, I'm just going to go down the list that I have here, and the first person on my list is Genesis Granados.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. My name is Genesis Granados, and I'm the Senior Manager of Environmental Justice Programs at Airlines Houston. I'm here today to represent on behalf of Airlines Houston and also as a resident of Houston, Texas, and will be providing general comments on the TCEQ. We commend the TCEQ for working on implementing Senate Bill 1397 after its sunset review. This would include increasing the maximum daily fine from $25,000 to $40,000 for the worst violations, extending the public comment period for certain permits to 36 hours after the public meeting, accessibility of permit applications online, updates to the compliance history programs, review and report on environmental flows and outreach, and education on public participation in permitting. However, it is of utmost importance to highlight the lackluster and still reluctant approach that TCEQ is taking to improve its response and responsibility to hold industry polluters accountable. Based on a report written by Public Citizen, the agency has 1,400 backlogged enforcement cases that have been left without resolution or resolved. In 2025, data shows that it only resolved 39 backlogged cases. This type of action shows a disservice to Texas communities, the protection of the environment, and a disregard for public health. Additionally, this is another example of how TCEQ time and time again chooses to prioritize polluters over public interests. Additionally, for Texas communities to trust the efficiency of the Environmental Regulation Agency, there needs to be meaningful public participation in permitting and rulemaking that is not seen as optional or checkboxing of a box. TCEQ must ensure that the public's feedback is always incorporated into rulemaking and permits and not dismissed. After its sunset review, the agency had the opportunity to add robust actions to its public participation plans based on community advocate recommendations. However, it showed preference to corporate interest groups. This preference is seen in amendments to its procedures to reduce public notice, transparency, and clarity in agency processes. In 2025, the commissioners considered 52 requests for contested case hearings. 40% of these requests were denied, even though the Office of Public Interest Counsel recommended granting a hearing to 62% of the denied requests. The TCEQ commissioners went against public interest recommendations and again chose polluters' interests over protecting the public, going against its own mission and philosophy of protecting Texas by reducing and preventing pollution. On the ground, we have seen this as public meetings not getting sufficient time to promote to impacted communities for effective public participation, inconsistent accountability on polluters' misuse of public notice guidelines that often limits the exposure of the information, not posting, for example, not posting notices in a relevant newspaper of the community or public areas of use by the community, and a decrease on ensuring that non-English speaking communities are part of the permit process and are given the resources needed to provide comment. The TCEQ has opportunity to change its moniker of reluctant regulator to robust regulator if it takes the time to truly listen to the people that it's supposed to serve and protect. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Yes, the next person on my list is Reem Tariq. I believe this individual is virtual.
Mr. Tariq, are you?
They may not be online. I'm checking with the chief clerk. It appears that they're not online. We'll come back at the end and try again. Sarah Cinco.
Hello, good morning TCEQ commissioners. My name is Sara Cinco, and I'm an organizer with Public Citizen representing the Healthy Port Communities Coalition. I'm also a resident of Channelview, Texas, which is an unincorporated area in Harris County, which I'm sure you're all aware of. In 2022, I testified in front of the TCEQ Sunset Advisory Commission. At the time, I was a college student at Rice University, and I expressed my frustration with TCEQ's lack of efficiency in diligently responding to local concerns. I also expressed concerns about the high levels of carcinogens, particularly benzene, that are present in my community, in my area, and that plagues my community daily, inhibiting residents from being able to live or perform daily functions without the looming threat of pollution and contamination. TCEQ air quality ratings from 2021 and 2022 in my community showed benzene levels 3 times higher than what Texas considers safe. TCEQ's own scientists experienced headaches at the site visits that were happening in Channelview. A report from Public Health Watch, a nonprofit journalistic organization, uncovered in December of 2023 that TCEQ not only knew for 20 years about the pollution in my community, but also did not inform any residents in the area about the risks that they face. Reluctancy, to me, is quite an understatement. Now, almost after 4 years after the Sunset Advisory Commission, the problems raised by community members and Texas residents persist to this day. Polluters can obtain permits to pollute in severe non-attainment zones without ever considering the health and the well-being of adjacent communities. Permits are being renewed and issued to polluters when the bottom line is that they shouldn't be violating these permits in the first place. Why are these permits continuously approved when these polluters continue to pollute in our communities? And on top of that, fees owed through ozone non-attainment are paid for partially by the TERP program. I don't really think this incentivizes compliance for the permits. The report written by Catherine Guerra and published by Public Citizen highlights some of these systemic discrepancies that exist between the agency's core functions and its intended purpose. The statistics in the report highlight that inherent gaps exist and really inhibit the agency from meaningfully responding to the struggles that residents face daily. This is not just something, obviously we see the report, but this is something that I'm living daily and my community is experiencing every single day. So to me, whether it's the backlog of enforcement cases, the delays in responding to environmental concerns, or the lack of enforcement actions for polluters, ultimately the interests that are being served are industries and not necessarily Texas residents. Without meaningful public participation in permitting processes, I really struggle to envision a future where the agency supports Texans holistically. Ultimately, we're here to demand accountability, but with your influence, we really have the opportunity to create avenues for meaningful public participation and for increased efficiency in the agency's operations. We're here because we believe in the mission and we hope it's carried out effectively. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Brianne Oakes.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Brian Oakes, and I'm the Executive Director for the Texas Campaign for the Environment. I would like to comment on performance measures for the agency and data from the Public Citizen report that was recently published. I've spent nearly 15 years in public administration serving at both municipal and state levels. I share that with you today because I have a deep respect for public institutions and for the responsibility that you carry in your roles as public servants. I also understand how important it is for agencies to live up to their mission, not just in words, but in outcomes. TCEQ's mission is to protect public health and natural resources consistent with sustainable economic development. But when you look at the performance data, it suggests that the balance is not being achieved. On the economic side, the system seems to be moving very efficiently. Nearly every permit that comes before you is approved. However, on the public health side and environmental protection side, we see clear warning signs. TCEQ's philosophy emphasizes timely and consistent enforcement. And you've already heard that last year the agency entered 2025 with a backlog of 1,432 cases, and you only resolved
Y'all
39.
keep talking about the backlog. It's a resource issue, and frankly, I find it very offensive to our staff who are working tirelessly to clear that backlog.
I have frontline communities that feel that it is offensive that if it is a resource agency, then where is the partnership with the public to advocate for the funding that you need to be resourced at the right way? So I have local communities that are just as much as offended, if not more, because they are directly impacted by the failure to resolve the backlog of cases. I think you have to step into the fact that there are everyday people who are living next to these facilities that are enduring the complaints that they're launching from you. So I want you to step into that too. But let me finish my comments before I run out of time.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
You want that backlog fixed? I do too. Next session, help us get more resources.
We can definitely talk about that. So another data point that is really important to me is that 30% of the complaints you received last year had 0 investigations that happened with them. And so you have Texans who have filed complaints who have not heard from the agency at all in terms of, how those complaints were resolved or how they were taken up at all. And I think that a number like 30% of your cases to not have a response to the public doesn't really fulfill the mission of public participation that the agency says that it is important for them. I also want to note that in closing that how we protect public health, how do we protect public health if we're not investigating harm? How do we ensure accountability without timely enforcement? And how do we build public trust if community voices are not meaningfully heard? This is not an attack. It's a call to align practice with purpose. I really want to encourage the commission to recommit to the full balance of your mission where protecting public health is just as strong as the priority to permit development. Because of your mission is a promise to the people of Texas, and a promise to protect public health isn't measured by how many permits you approve, it's measured by how well you protect the people who have to live with the consequences. Thank you for your time.
Now, I very much thank you for your comments, and I'd love to meet with you. So if you want to talk to Patrick Lopez, my senior advisor, let's meet and chat. Thank you.
Jennifer Hadaya.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jennifer Hadaya. I am the Executive Director of Air Alliance Houston. I am here to also provide general public comment inspired by our partners at Public Citizen. To start, for context, Houston is now the 7th most polluted city in the country for ozone and the 8th most polluted for PM 2.5. We have over 500 facilities in the EPA's toxic release inventory, and the same 12 are responsible for the majority of emissions events, the leaks, fires, spills, and explosions. There are an additional 160 aggregate plants, many easily located within a half-mile of homes, including my own. More concerning, however, is our life expectancy data. There's a 20-year gap between the zip codes on the west side of Houston, who live the longest, and those on the east side that live the shortest. The east side is where pollution sources take place. So how did we get here? There's not enough time today to summarize the history of Houston's ward system redlining and the buildup of the ship channel as a fossil fuel superhub. But there is time to focus on the conditions I believe keep those statistics in place. Permitting that disregards local context, enforcement that is biased in favor of industry needs, public participation that places the burden of proof on the people that are affected. I am fully aware of the constraints the TCEQ is under. I recognize the staffing shortages, budget shortfalls, and political pressures, but I also believe there are solutions that have nothing to do with staffing, budget, and politics, and everything to do with prioritization from the top. And to that end, I have 3 suggestions for your consideration today. Number 1, right-size existing TCEQ resources from permitting to enforcement. It's clear from the data that TCEQ is overperforming in permitting and underperforming in investigations. At this rate, if no intentional change is made, TCEQ will never catch up with enforcing the permits it continues to approve. Number 2, I think we can all agree that if you break something, you should fix it. Unfortunately, TCEQ's recent rulemaking creates loopholes for industry to avoid fixing what's been broken. An example is the diversion of TERP funds to pay non-attainment fees. We need rules that address responsibility for non-attainment, not those that forgive it. And number 3, recommit the agency to public participation. Accepting 82% of the recommendations to weaken public participation from the Texas Industry Project and none from community members is letting the fox guard the henhouse. To wrap up, the EPA is systematically weakening environmental health protections right before our eyes. That means our state regulators are more critical now than ever. We need the TCEQ to fulfill its mission now more than ever and for everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
The next person on my list is Errol Summerlin, who's virtual.
Mr. Summerlin?
Yes, ma'am. Can y'all hear me?
We sure can.
Oh, wonderful. Commissioners, my name is Errol Summerlin. I was a resident of Portland, Texas for 40 years prior to my relocation to Maryland for family health reasons. Otherwise, I'd still be living in paradise down there in South Texas. I'm also a co-founder of CAPE, the Coastal Alliance to Protect Our Environment. By now, everybody knows about Public Citizens' TCEQ Watchdog campaign and its review of the agency's recent annual performance. The data is spot on and powerful, data that could be used for some needed internal reform. The data doesn't suggest that staff is slacking, but rather demonstrates the lack of leadership at the TCEQ. As to using the data for internal reform, it's evident that the time between when a complaint is made and when TCEQ has boots on the ground to investigate is simply way too long. When the complaint is made, it's in real time. The smell, the eye irritation, the roar of a flare. Many who are impacted talk about it in social media as it is occurring in real time. Here's a brief exchange between folks on social media during a flaring event. I'm on Granby and I heard a loud, continuous rumble as in thunder, but at ground level. It's concerning. Oh, that's flaring. It's the refinery. People in Portland vent and complain. It has been really loud. I'm off Memorial on Oak Ridge and felt it, also very common. I'm on Portland Drive and I heard it and felt it too. Had my headset on and was gaming online with friends and heard it over that. I thought it was thunder. Yep, at my house it sounds like I'm living on the tarmac. The dog is so afraid he won't eat when it's happening, which is sometimes several days in a row. When the ground flare is burning, I can hear the roar and my windows rattle. It's almost like the ground is shaking. So while social media is ablaze, neighbors talk about it on their own porches. You see, hear, listen, smell, and breathe in real time while it's happening. The TCEQ needs a more efficient and real-time way of investigating these events. How do you do that? Leadership. And that leadership begins with this commission. 2 of you are relatively new to the agency. You have an opportunity to change the course of the agency, to establish new priorities. Leadership in any public or private entity defines priorities and distributes available resources where there is the most need. Field offices need support in their investigative work, not only in resources, but in the importance of what they do to better protect the health and safety of communities through timely investigations and enforcement. So take leadership now and make enforcement a priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Summerlin. Do we have anyone else signed up?
Juliana Hernandez.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here as a representative of Airlines Houston and HPCC, the Healthy Ports Communities Coalition, but primarily I'm here as a lifetime Houston resident. I grew up in the Aldine area, and then I attended the University of Houston to study public policy, so I've stayed in Houston my entire life. And throughout this time, I have continuously seen my community be bombarded by concrete batch plants, whether it's near our schools, near our houses, or near a new all-inclusive park that we received designed for children of all disabilities and abilities. And I'm here as a representative of that community to say that we are tired of the seemingly continuous free passes that industry receives to take up our green spaces and to pollute our areas. And it's not just me. I hear this from my neighbors, my civic club members, different parents of different children who are curious to know why these concrete batch plants continue to show up and are there seemingly for indefinite amounts of times. And I came to say that although you may not see them that often, or they're not here in person, or maybe they don't have time to log on online to make public comment, we still feel this way. I think a lot of the times many regulators can say, well, like, I don't really hear this from the community, so I don't think it's really a problem for them. But really it is. They just don't have access to public comment forums such as this. And I think this reflects how the TCEQ can do a better job moving forward of making their public notice and public comment systems more accessible to Texans, just because it's shown in the way that we have a lack of participation. And I also wanted to note this back to how this can be visible in the findings from Public Citizens' year in review of the TCEQ that they did after the TCEQ sunset review, where the TCEQ was required to perform its public participation process, but instead of listening to community advocate input, it seemed as if the TCEQ listened more to industry interest. And this is evident in how the procedures were amended to reduce public notice, transparency, and clarity in agency processes. So I just wanted to leave off by asking that we hope that you can move forward by expanding your agency's efforts to receive and respect public intake, as I mentioned previously. And I would like to thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments.
Kathy Fulton, who is virtual.
Ms. Bolton?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Okay, I apologize. I'm coming down with a little cold of some form. I just, thank you for letting me speak. I just want to say that I realize that it's been 3.5 years ago, I spoke at my first TCEQ meeting up there in person. And at that meeting, one of the things that I pointed out, because I'd done a bit of research, was that I was like only the fifth person to have spoken during public comment over the course of the previous years. And what I want to say about that is that I'm really happy to see so many people actively participating and speaking. I don't think that it's appropriate to get offended with some of these comments, because these comments are of what the public, what we are seeing here on the ground wherever we live. And there has been some wonderful speakers today alone that have made some very good suggestions. And I agree that the enforcement or lack of enforcement with TCEQ is a problem. And I know that during the Sunset Commission review and all of that, I think that was one of the recommendations I made, Chairwoman Pope, was to devote more money to enforcement. And I think that that definitely is something that must happen for everybody, because it's clear that the staff is overwhelmed with the number of complaints or investigations that have come in. So I would just hope, rather than get upset or offended with somebody's comments, there was quite a bit of great information in today's, from everyone that spoke today. And I think it's a good starting point, or even to get ball rolling to help with the enforcement of violators or repeat violators especially. And I hope to continue to participate in the future, hopefully when I'm not quite so, not feeling so swift. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and I hope you feel better.
Adrian Shelley.
Hello, good morning, Commissioners. Adrian Shelley with Public Citizen, and I'm here with a friendly reminder that we're all here for the same thing, right? We believe in the agency's mission, we support its staff, and we're going to continue to support its staff. And you know, suggestions otherwise are unfortunate and frankly disingenuous. And I brought receipts. So you've asked us to support your staff. You've asked us to support budget requests. We have for many years. I'm not going to read all the dates and everything here, but everything that I'm going to describe is public record. It's online. In the House Appropriations Committee, the last 3 sessions, February 27, 2025, 2023, 2021, you can find our testimony talking about the staff salary issue that you all have. And I know that your open positions have been cut by 1/3, right? They were like 420, they're 150. So you guys are making progress toward that. That is awesome, right? There are specific other line items that we have supported over the years. The 2019 appropriation, $947,500 for mobile air monitoring. You know, we were critical of the underuse of the mobile vehicles. The agency responded. We supported that allocation in the legislative process, and we got 3 more vehicles. The monitoring division does a great job. The folks out in Beaumont are so responsive when those storms come through. I'm not going to name names because I don't want to embarrass people, but they're really responsive. They do a good job. Just last month, 2 new air monitors got put in Houston, right? These are regulatory air monitors in 5th Ward and in Pleasantville. These are Black communities in Houston. My colleagues out there have been advocating for these monitors for years, and they got them. They got 2 of them, right? There were ribbon cuttings. The agency was invited to those ribbon cuttings. Rider 7. Rider 7 was vetoed by Governor Abbott in 2017. This was air monitoring funds in near non-attainment counties. At the time, it was $4.5 million. I, along with a colleague, Andrew Hoeksma at CapCog, made it our mission to get the Rider 7 funds back. Since then, Rider 7 was reappropriated. We added particulate matter. We got $2.5 million and then $4.5 million for particulate matter. So we're up to $9 million a year in Rider 7 funds now. That was our doing, all right? We've got the receipts. We have spent a lot of time with the public, engaging with the public regarding this agency. We spent 2 years in the last sunset process, right? I'm not going to go through all of it, but you know, we held virtual hearings. This was during COVID. We held in-person hearings. We brought more than 100 people to the Sunset Commission hearing. We submitted 93 comments on the record from people who couldn't get to Austin. That was 2023 sunset. 2011 sunset, I was a staffer. I was the only staffer in the building with the title Environmental Director. My boss was the Vice Chair of the Environmental Regulations Committee. The Sunset Bill came through that committee. I was advocating on the agency's behalf back then. All right, there you go. So just believe us when we tell you that we want the same things, all right? Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Adrian,
Yes.
call Patrick and you and I can meet.
Okay.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
All right. Anyone else?
Yes, Alon Levin.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman Pop and commissioners and general counsel and staff. Ilan Levine. I work for Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. And for those who don't know, we are one of the state's legal aid providers. We provide free civil legal services to low-income Texans.
You're exceptional at what you do.
Thank you.
Like,
Thank you.
truly exceptional.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Most of what we do, and this is, I'm going to use my 3 minutes to use this time, but thank you. But most of what we do is to help, is domestic violence, keeping folks from getting, on the street tomorrow, housing stuff and all that. And I mention that because we have clients and prospective clients who may be listening to this right now. So with respect to our environmental work, we have clients in El Paso, down in Laredo, all the way to Calhoun County, and here in Travis County. We represent 68 counties, South and Central Texas. We hear from folks about the same things you hear about, rock crushers and cement plants. We hear about freeways coming through people's front yard, development issues, and of course, metal recyclers and local air pollution and water pollution problems. That's what we hear from our clients. I want to make 3 points this morning. First, with respect to public participation, an affected person. When I worked at the Sunset Commission 25 years ago and I had a discussion with Jeff Sadis, I said, how many permits do y'all issue every year? And he gave me a back of the envelope number, something like more than 10,000. Today, it's probably double that. Y'all, your staff issues thousands and thousands of permits and permit amendments every year. A fraction of those go to public notice because most of them are minor and they don't go to, and they're PBR, permit by rules, general. A fraction of those that go to public notice draw a comment, and a fraction of those have an opportunity for a contested case hearing. So when you all get a request for a contested case hearing, I urge you to use your discretion and really, from the public policy angle, use that discretion to let counties like Williamson County and local governments and folks who live nearby, let them have their hearing. With respect to air, I'm going to make 2 quick points on air pollution, and then I'll wrap it up. On permits, air pollution permits, major sources are gaming the system, period. It needs to stop. Major sources like Formosa, Plastics Corporation in Calhoun County, and other huge major sources have multiple different chemical plants, and they all treat them as though they're different plants, which means they escape the robust permitting that your staff would do if you treated them like what they are, which is major sources. Final point on enforcement. You've got an emission event database that is very useful. It's useful for your staff. It's useful for the public. I'd like for you to please direct your staff to take a look at a problem that's widespread. Sources that are reporting into the air emissions event database are misreporting, incorrectly reporting, and inflating their permit limits for benzene and formaldehyde and other toxics. Please just have your regulated entities fill in the right permit limits for those carcinogens and air toxics on the emission event reports. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Todd Phillips. And I understand from checking in with the chief clerk to see if he's online. Okay, Mr. Phillips is not online. We'll go back to back to Reem Tariq.
can hear you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Good morning, Chairwoman Pop and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Reem Tariq. I am a Texas resident working in environmental health. I'm speaking today because I'm deeply concerned about the gaps in enforcement and public engagement and how they're impacting the health of the communities across our state. What I keep seeing time and time again is we hear from the residents who submit complaints about pollution and wait weeks, sometimes even months without a response. During that time, of course, they continue to breathe polluted air, unsure if anything is being done to protect them. This is seriously eroding the trust in our communities and leaves the communities feeling like they're being ignored. I also want to emphasize that public participation needs to be meaningful. What we're seeing is community input during permitting processes feels like like a box checking exercise rather than something that's genuinely informing decisions. I can't emphasize this enough that people are taking the time out of their lives to show up, to share their stories, advocating for their health, and that input does deserve to be taken seriously. Finally, I just want to mention that enforcement really matters. Delays in compliance and weak follow-through is sending a message that polluters can operate without accountability. TCEQ has a responsibility, a very important responsibility, to ensure that permits are not just issued, but they are upheld in a way that protects public health. I really urge TCEQ to maybe look at ways that it could gauge compliance and enforce compliance by these polluting facilities. At the end of the day, it truly is your role to protect Texans, not to accommodate industry at the expense of our community. So I urge you to strengthen enforcement, improve response times to complaints, and ensure that public input is meaningfully shaping your decisions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments.
Okay, we will go back to Todd Phillips. Check in again with the chief clerk and see if he's rejoined or joined. And it looks like he is not online, and that was the final person on my list.
All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the commission? Yes, ma'am. Come on up.
I actually come back with a request as well. I would love to meet with you as well, Chairwoman, if that would be possible. All right. Thank you.
Okay, well, would you like me to call the next items?
Yep.
Items 54 through 57 are for closed session, but the commission will not be meeting in closed session today.
All right. With that, this meeting stands adjourned. The time is 11:09 a.m. Thank you.